All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 66 of Global Citizens. My name is Calvin. I am the show's host, and I'm also, of course, its creator. So, my guest for today is, well, let's call him a visionary because he has created something to help us streamline the process of getting a visa. So, if any of you who has traveled overseas know how tedious it can be, and well, Mohak here has actually find a way to streamline the process due to his passion for traveling. So a little bit of background about himself. Yeah, Mohak is a third culture kid who currently resides in San Francisco. He originally hailed from India, and well, as I mentioned, his love of traveling actually now transpired to what he is currently doing now. He created an app which is called Atlas, and it's done by the company VDC, Legal Liability Corporation. Okay, and for if I read it correctly, the process of using this app is as simple as snapping a photo of the required documents, answering simple questions to get a compiled application packet, and well, along the way you'll be instructed on how to do everything properly. So I hope I explained it properly. So without further ado, let me pass the platform back to Mohak. So how are you, man?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on this episode, Calvin. Really appreciate it and really excited to be here.
Thank you for coming. When I heard about your application, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Awesome.
I'm
Wow.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is, you created an industry in a sense, like traveling support industry. So yeah, we definitely will get to that. But first of all, let's get to know you a little bit more. Yeah.
hmm
So
hmm
in my show, there is a term called the TC quest. So this is basically about your journey as a TCK so far, like all the
hmm
countries that you have lived in, or maybe you spent a lot of time with, and of course, how do you feel it has shaped you? So yeah, do you
hmm
mind sharing with us on your TC quest?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I am originally from India, and then I lived in India early on in New Delhi
Oh,
with
lovely.
a lot of my family, which was fun. But then I moved to the United States since in the last like I've been here for like what more than 10 years now, and that was a big change just because there's a big cultural difference. And then I've been here ever since. In the United States, I've been in two cities and very different cities. Earlier on, I was in Pittsburgh, which is a fair, like medium-sized city in the East Coast, uh, very small. And then since the last 3 years, I've been in San Francisco, which is like much bigger and a huge cultural difference too.
Okay, from the East Coast to the West Coast, so it in itself is a completely different world on its own, if I remember correctly. And I
Correct,
believe
correct.
there's quite a number of population for the Indian community, if I'm not mistaken, in Philadelphia itself.
Yeah. I think there are quite a lot of Indians here. Definitely.
And now you're in Silicon Valley.
Correct.
All right. Okay, okay. So yeah, I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry. I will definitely have to ask this, but yeah. What is your definition of home? So is it more to the place itself or the people that you love?
I think the place or the location has a big bearing on the people, but it's definitely people if I have to pick one. Right? But I do think that the place and the culture of that place has a big bearing on the people there.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So mind if I ask this then? When did you discover that you are a TCK though, and how does it affect your mindset, especially maybe when in terms of repatriation? You mentioned it was a big cultural change. What happens after like this 10 years when you actually head back to India? How do you feel when you meet your friends and family?
Great. Yeah. So I think I experienced this for the first time in 2013 when I went to college, uh, because like in a good way, because suddenly like you were no longer the only one who's from a different culture. Like you meet all these people coming from like various spots, different cities, different countries in the world, uh, and then you just start to realize that like there's so much good that can come out of differences. And then staying in touch, I think, and I still like try to go back often. And then with the advent of technology, it's fairly easy to keep in touch with your family and friends wherever they are in the world, uh, like with tools such as WhatsApp. So I don't feel that detached, but I do really miss, and I really look forward to like going back home or like India whenever I get a chance.
All right. Okay, earlier you mentioned about the blessing of the differences, yeah? So,
Mhm.
what do you feel also has been the negative sides from the cultural differences? And, well, let's say maybe we explore a little bit deeper about that, yeah? Or have you ever experienced like any form of failure with regards to, because there's such a big difference in like culture or maybe in a workplace, that it becomes such a big headache to you or it becomes such a gigantic burden on you?
So I think that's a good question. So like I would say like one of the negatives. That's a good question. I think one of the negatives has been that you are like for me it's been the opposite actually, because during a lot of my formative years, especially in terms of professionally, they all happen like in America. So I'm very accustomed to the American way of working, which is like working really hard, um, and being very risk pro. Uh, so I actually have trouble if I'm working with like people back in India, because the working culture is very different. It's not as risk pro, uh, right? And there's no right or wrong. It's just different. So that was a shock for me. Um, yeah, but other than that, I think I consider myself pretty fortunate to be in countries where people are accepting of other cultures, and to be around people who are really accepting of me. So I've been lucky to not have uh, a lot of negatives.
Okay, can you share that with me? Yeah, I've actually went to India once. I was in New Delhi and Jaisalmer at that time. So it was both in the north and southern part of
Mhm,
India. In, from what I see, of course, is that Indians are some of the friendliest people you will ever meet. Of
mhm.
course, not to insult, not to make a dig or anything. Don't ever deal with them in pricing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly,
yeah, don't ever deal with them with pricing. You will
yeah,
lose all your money. Not that they
exactly,
are scamming you, but bargaining is part of a culture there. So just be
exactly.
careful for your money. Not an insult, of course, but
No,
yeah, that was
absolutely,
tough. That
absolutely.
was
Yeah,
fun.
and
Yeah, that was
definitely,
tough.
definitely.
All right. Yeah. Earlier you mentioned, yeah, it was a difficult working experience when you're working with an Indian. How about the relationship with your own parents, though? Because for your parents, is they grow up in India, they know that this is how they are growing up, this is what they are accustomed to, and for your kids, you grow up with the culture in the United States. So how does it feel, though, especially in your current older years as an adult?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good question. I think it is definitely like we different, because like one thing in India or with the Indian culture is like you are very much you're involved, and your family is very much involved in your day-to-day life, right? So everything's about the family, right?
Correct.
Whereas in the US, after a certain age, everything's about you. So it's just like you and your life, right? Everyone lives separately. So it has been like I think it's been like a change for them, but it hasn't impacted like in any way, right? Like because uh, one good way is that I live so far that it's whenever we meet, it's like everyone cherishes those moments. So it's not been a problem for me, at least.
Oh, okay, okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I've had that similar experience, but that is with long distance relationship. Yeah, that's another story, though. So let's not get into that. Yeah, okay, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, all right. So this is okay. So actually now, of course, we will dive into the main reason, of course, not only that we now get to know you a little bit more, but of course is because what I actually invited you for, and that is to share and of course promote your app. So yeah, if I am I correct to call the name is Atlas and
Yeah.
V is the name of your company. Apologies, yeah, because I use
Hmm.
Android.
Yeah, you
Uh,
can just use Atlas.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So, yeah, as I mentioned in your introduction, it was created with your passion for traveling, right?
Hmm.
So, but other than that, what actually now spurs you on to create it, actually, to pursue this? Because as an entrepreneur, and also now you are in San Francisco, which is the tech capital of the world, Silicon Valley. So, what makes you pursue it now?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for asking this. I think I love traveling, but I was actually frustrated by having to do visas before each of my trips, and I had done it so many times because I wanted to like I was traveling, trying to travel to a lot of places, that it reached a tipping point where I thought that okay, why am I doing all this manual work again and again when I can uh, just
Recycle, recycle. Hey, I
exactly,
just need to change the
exactly.
tire location.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can just recycle it. And so I initially just built it as a side project for myself. So I don't have to go through the trouble. But then as I started sharing it with friends and with other people, they all told me that they actually faced the same problem. So then I expanded it and I thought of like just doing it as a startup full time.
Okay, for those of you who just tuned into this show for the very first time, yeah. So, Global Citizens is an online webcast whereby I invited individuals who have experienced a multicultural lifestyle. So, like for example, myself and Mohak, both of us are third culture kids. We grow up outside of our own passport country. I've of course invited digital nomads, and I've also invited international speakers and expatriates. So why I invited such individuals is because I want to promote intercultural studies and I want people to actually understand what is the main difference when you come to a country for a holiday and when you are living there. Because the thing is this, yes, when you do visit a new place, you are exposed to a brand new culture, but after maybe let's say we put it a week, yeah, you are back to your own home country. You are back to what you're familiar with. Whereas a third culture kid, like what Mohak has been sharing all along, is that he has to ingrain his mindset to how it was in the local community. He has to ingrain his mindset, the way they think, and well, of course, it sometimes creates a lot of cultural issue with even his own family members. So this is why I actually invited such individuals so that people understand what is the difference between what you call may call an extended vacation or actually ingratiating yourself in the new society. Okay, sorry, my friend. Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing the context, Calvin.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of that, yeah. So this is actually a question that I think recently got a bit more popular. Is that because a lot of us, as I mentioned when I was sharing the context, is that people tend to take it like, oh, you live overseas, isn't it just like some extended vacation? So for your case though, is that you are sorry, mind if I double check if you are an American citizen or an Indian citizen?
So I still am an Indian citizen because there's the American immigration system is extremely complicated. It takes a long time to
Yeah,
get citizenship here.
yeah, we don't have to go into that.
Yeah,
It's all over the news. Do check it out, CNN. I have it
yeah.
playing in my TV now. Okay. Yeah, that can be extremely complicated.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's move on. All right. So, have you ever felt irked by those who have never experienced this lifestyle? Is that when you mention to them, is that where you're from? Oh, I'm from India, but I grew up in the United States. So, will they be asking you questions like, so does that make you a citizen of United States or something along that line? And
Yeah.
well, sorry, just to add on a bit.
hmm
This was actually from one of my good friend, and he's actually my guest in the beginning of the year. His name is Ben Vogel. He has his own show, and for him, when he actually came back from Asia and he returned back to the States, one of the questions that he remembers is they assume that he travels around in a water buffalo for some reason because they thought, oh, this is what they see in the movie, and well, this is what it's everyday life. Of course, it's so far from the truth. So yeah, my question to you is that do you ever feel that there is some questions that you feel people need to be more sensitive for, especially for those who are to the multicultural community? It's because, well, of course, not intentional, but it can be really harmful.
hmm Yeah, I think definitely, and I felt this and experienced this a few times when people really press you to choose one place that you're from. But the reality is that you are from a lot of different places, right? And you don't want to associate yourself with just one place when you've had so many experiences. Uh, so I think if people just press you less, it's okay to ask these questions. But I've definitely experienced situations where people continuously uh, keep asking the same question until they get to just one answer.
Yeah. And what would you recommend to them, though? I mean, it's part of our human nature to always want to put people in a box. But the thing is that as a TCK, global citizens, we know what it is, but it's not that we can just telepathically tell them, this is not what I want you to ask me. What would you recommend to that, my friend?
So the way I handle those conversations are I just basically give them some context on like how I've been fortunate to experience so many cultures, and yeah, that pretty much answers it. I don't know what they could ask me instead, because it's part of human nature to ask these questions, and I don't think they would change the way they ask questions. But I try to share some context and share some background in the hope that they'll be more empathetic towards other people in the future when asking the same question.
That's a beautiful answer, man. Okay, yeah, so I got to get back to your app again, yeah? So, yeah, when you first started it, earlier we mentioned of the cultural differences and everything, and even, well, some of the challenges, right? What internet challenges do you get when you actually start pursuing this as a startup? Because I know it's definitely not an easy thing. I created a podcast with 60 over episodes, and I've lost plenty of sleeps doing this. And even when, even with the 60 plus episode, I still worry every single time. And well, just to before any broadcast, I'll be in front of my laptop checking every single detail for 3 hours, and even then there are a lot of situations beyond my control, such as, for example, Wi-Fi connection, or even I worry about my equipment being faulty or some of the things. So when you pursue this, what was the challenges though? Because, well, no disrespect, of course, but we coming from an Asian-based society, entrepreneurship has never been something that, well, everybody in our family will definitely be supportive of. So yeah, Maybe you can tell us on that.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you're doing an exceptional job, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think you're spot on. It is hard. It's extremely hard. Like I don't suggest doing it startups to like anyone, because there's a new challenge every day, and it doesn't stop. It's just and you lose a lot of sleep, and it's just gonna get worse. So only do it if you're extremely passionate about something. Otherwise, you'll just give up. Um, and then your second, like I mean, and then yeah, like you're right. Like as Asians, as I said, right, we're not risk pro. Entrepreneurship is just not that appreciated. But I don't really worry about my parents or my families or other people's opinion on what I'm doing because they're not my customers.
Yeah.
So the opinions that I worry about or that make me lose sleep are of my customers. That doesn't mean I don't respect what they have to say,
Yeah.
but really like startup is I think a fancy word, but what I'm really doing in simple terms is just solve a problem that I and other people have. So the opinions that matter to me are of those other people who have that problem that they hate applying for visas.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's a beautiful answer. I like it. I like it. I really like it. You're really positive, my friend. Okay. So yeah. So what? So this is actually a really unique industry that you are actually pursuing of. It's because maybe as I coined it earlier, it's called travel support. Yeah. It's because well, a lot of times when we travel, we are used to a certain way of doing things, and well, we can't really change this because this is from the government itself. We have plenty of times encounter a lot of difficulty. Like I recall when I was going to South Korea, well, no disrespect to them, but they do not really speak English that well.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and at that time, in order for me to actually tell them, because we actually have full documents that is all of them is prepared, and the thing is that she doesn't understand how to read a certain word on. I think one of the ways they check like your incomes and everything, right? So
Mhm.
in order to actually highlight it that this is actually what we have, I actually need to call somebody else who actually managed to pass through this situation. And I told them, this is the exact same word. How come you don't understand what is written here? So that was incredibly difficult though. So what other ideas you might be thinking of in order to be delivering for this travel support industry? Or maybe you, I don't know, maybe like an automated Google Translate when you say something and it's translated to the word.
Yeah, exactly. So I think right now I'm focused on just visas because it's a big problem. But then
Yeah.
after this, and right now, actually, to be specific, I'm focused on travel visas. So when people go to visit other countries for a week or 2 weeks, right, or like a month or so. But then if the long-term goal is to like use this and then go towards like long-term visas when people want to like migrate
Yeah.
to other countries and become like potentially become TCKs, right? So for example, if you want to go to Finland tomorrow for the next 1 year, it's not a decision you can take as lightly as traveling to Finland because you have to figure out so many things, right? And
Yeah.
I want to make that easy.
Yeah.
But then long term, uh, what I really want to do is like for people who are forcefully displaced, like make it easy for them to find a new home, and that's only going to become more evident and more profound with climate change because a lot of people are just going to get physically displaced. And then I want to make sure that those people are able to migrate to a country where they can find a job and migrate easily, and they're just not held up in refugee camps.
All right. All right. Okay. Yeah. So with regards to what you mentioned on travel, yeah. So I believe it was a quote by. Let me recall what's the name. Oh yes, and Campanella. So, if I recall correctly, one of the quote that I love about her, and actually it's a cover page for my own Facebook page, is that traveling opens up each new chapters of your life. So,
Mhm.
how do you feel though your app Atlas will help to enhance the global knowledge for people who have never experienced this before? For one thing, is now because they, as I mentioned, when you live in a new country, you have to adapt to a new mindset, and well, you can defend your own ideals and, of course, the way you live for how long have you lived. But if you are there for an entrepreneurship and if you cannot adjust to the locals' mindset, well, pretty much you will get nothing but squat since, well, everybody have a different way of working, everybody have different culture. So how do you hope your app Atlas achieve this?
Yeah, so the long-term goal and so sort of mission is to help create a world without borders. So like one of the models that I think is really successful is that of EU, where borders exist, but for the right reasons to protect and maintain cultures, different cultures, but they don't exist for the wrong reasons, which is that anyone can go and work anywhere, anyone can travel anywhere seamlessly, and that's long term. That's where what I hope this is like Atlas is able to help move the world towards that. Uh, and then, yeah, I think right now just making sure that like people can experience different cultures as easily, and there are a lot of things that go into that. And the way I'm doing it, or trying to do, is just by ensuring that there are no hurdles when they want to go somewhere in the form of like government processes and visas.
All right. Okay. I believe you mentioned the word nomad earlier. Yeah. So, well, one of the main trend that the world has come to now is work from home. Obviously, due to the current pandemic. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, how do you feel though with now with your application or even my broadcast or any other kind of medium whereby the awareness of an intercultural community? Actually, there's an upcoming series in HBO that will be telling about the life of a TCK. And yeah, how do you feel though greater awareness of this multicultural community could create a certain kind of new culture for well for this work from home or even this remote working in a remote working trend? As we know, like for example in Google, it they created a model that completely obliterated the system of micromanagement that was prevalent from the past. Is because for them is that they empowered their employee in order to create, as long as the work is done. Of course, it's due to the trend, due to the difficulty of life within the tech industry. But well, this is now, as people like to call it, the new normal. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It is the new normal, and I think it's for the better because the best products I feel are built by diverse teams because they represent diversity of thought. And remote work, the acceleration to like remote work would actually just enable that because now you're not no longer limited to hiring people or building things with people who have the same background and are in the same city. Uh, and this will actually help you build products for everyone and not just for like one set of people because the people working on them are just from around the world from so many cultures. And then I think personally also just working with people or the people you work with, they're a huge part of your life. And if you get to interact with people from other cultures, you'll just learn a lot more and you'll grow a lot more. So I think it's just there are only positives out of this.
Yep, I agree. I completely agree with you on that. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so yeah, earlier that when you mentioned about the diversity, yeah. So
Hmm.
with how much everything is going now, okay, and the fact that now, well, sad to say, there has been a lot of system that was put in place that actually challenge diversity, and well, as we've seen in the news, has happened so many times, yeah. So That is in its own way. What do you hope to see though in terms of maybe in the tech industry? Is that where with now how much it has grown to, well, practically in a sense rule the world. How much do you feel though this can help to close the bridge between people of different cultures and diverse mindset? It's because now we the advance of globalization, you get to see how people in the different lifestyle work, different cultures, and as a result, you become somebody who questions that. Oh, maybe what my own country has been doing is not working. So you adopt that mindset, which makes you an outsider to even your own, which is for us, TCK, of course, it's a common experience. But for those who have never experienced it, well, this is a brand new thing. So yeah, Mohak.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know the actual answer for this actually, but I'll try to answer it from the lens of like building a product, right?
Yep. Go
And
ahead.
the way I see about it, think about it is, you build whatever your customer wants, right? And then everything revolves around the customer. So it doesn't matter who is built. Like for instance, right? Like when you use Facebook, right? You don't know who built it or who built the feature that you use to like message me or right. For
Yep.
you, it's something that you're using and you want and you love, right? And that's how
Yes.
I see
Correct.
it. That if the customer wants something, uh, it doesn't matter who builds it, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, if you have a diverse set of people working on something, they're able to, because of their different backgrounds, they're able to build for a larger base because they have seen like problems from different lenses.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is actually going to be my very last question. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, okay. So, while not everybody has the background in tech, and not everybody would have the capacity, or not, sorry, not that they don't have the capacity, but they might not have the niche or the mindset in order to understand tech industry while it continues to grow. I mean, if you tell my father now that, oh, do you know that WhatsApp can actually have a direct camera that you can directly send to the people, he would be confused because he always thought that you have to use the external cam in order to actually take a picture. So how would you advise to individuals who may not have a quick grasp on the tech industry, even if they are maybe around our age, but they do want to feel they want to contribute to it? And also, yeah, just a branch of that, yeah. What would you advise to younger generations of TCKs who may want to pursue a life of a startup? Because, well, this is now becoming a gigantic trend in the way the world is.
Right. So to answer your first question, I don't think you need like, I don't know about older people, but for younger people, like I don't think you need to understand tech as much now as you're surrounded by it, right? So
Yep.
you'll just understand it organically by virtue of using it. For younger generations who want to start a startup, I would caution them because doing a startup so that you can tell your friends or you can like do a startup for the sake of doing a startup is the wrong reason to do a startup. And it's very hard to succeed that way. Uh, so I would advise them to do a lot of side projects to find niches that they're interested in, solve problems for themselves or people they know, and then if they're really solving a problem, if they're making something that people desperately want, then that is the right time to like scale it and then do a startup. But don't start with the intention of doing a startup because, like at the end of the day, you like as I said, it's a fancy word, but really what a startup is, it's solving a specific problem for a specific customer. Uh, So just focus on, like, for younger generation, just focus on like solving problems, and for the most part, just focus on solving problems for yourself. Like, unless you're happy with everything that you have in your life and everything that you use, which I don't think anyone is, just
Yeah.
focus on solving problems for yourself. And if you're able to do it, and if that problem happens to be widespread, then you can do a startup. If it doesn't, then you still spend your time solving a problem for yourself.
All right. Okay, so that is actually the end of all my questions. Yeah. Anything you want to mention to the audience?
Just thank you so much, Calvin, and everyone for listening, and thank you so much for inviting me.
You're most welcome. Okay, so I need to give a shout out to these. There's these 10 individuals. So earlier they left their likes and comments on my announcement post. So yeah, so for those who is watching live currently is Mr. Puji, Miss Karen Delfina Samaro, Mr. Kevin Lukito, and all these individuals. Some of them are actually some of my past guests. So Dani, hope you're doing well in Colorado, and Carolina, hope she has been trying to advocate more on mental health now, guys. Do check out her page. Jen Mohindra, Miss Jen Mohindra is actually a TCK coach. So if you guys are interested to learn more about your difficulty, the challenges as a TCK, please check her out. Mr. Ivan, Megan, Megan was actually on friends of mine show. She was one of my past guests too. Miss Jiwon Lee, who is actually the youngest on the show, she recently launched a book of her experience as a TCK teen. And lastly, Miss Charlotte Ruth, thank you so much for those watching in today. And along with that, I would like to thank everyone who is also watching. Please do leave a like and share. And well, if you will be watching it later also. And lastly, do check out Mohak's app. It's called Atlas, which I will be putting in the link in the description box. So other than that, everybody do stay safe, take care of yourself, wash your hands, put on your mask, because well, we are coming to the end of 2020 now. So yeah, do take care of yourself, everyone, and have a good day. And thank you so much for coming, Mohak.
Thank you so much, Calvin, for having me.
You're most welcome. All right. Take care, man. Bye.
Bye bye.